Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering news video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Core Set 2021 spoilers for June 6th. So these are all the spoilers from today and a couple that were released later yesterday. So why don't we jump right into this. So starting off, we have kind of an insane card with Rewind. This is a reprint from Magic 2013. It's been reprinted in a Master set since then, but it is the last time it was printed in Standard. It's a 4-cost instant, and it says counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. Now, I think this card is an insane thing to print in Standard for a couple reasons. The past couple sets have had the theme of let's cast things at flash speed, and things that aren't just counter spells with creatures or artifacts or really anything. So the fact that you could throw this in one of those decks, which is where I think it will see play, in a Simic Flash or a Dimir Flash or Sultai Flash, and you can like save mana, and then make sure your opponent doesn't cast something, and then still do your turn as you were expecting. A lot of Flash decks, yes, they have counter spells in them, but they don't want to counterspell everything because then they don't get to flash in their stuff. Here, I get to counterspell your thing, and then flash in my other stuff. Or I get to counterspell your thing and still have mana open for another counter if you were to do that. On top of that, what I like better about it can be used for kind of like janky decks where maybe you have lands that tap for more than 1 mana, such as Lotus Field. You can basically, tap a land for 3 and then another one for 4, float 2 extra mana, and then, cast a spell, untap those lands, and you end up with 2 more mana than you started out. Kind of janky stuff like that's kind of fun, but I'm worried about this in Flash decks because, now they're going to counterspell either 2 things or they're going to counterspell your stuff and still get to flash in their stuff. So that is kind of upsetting. Next we have Jeskai Elder. This is a 2-cost creature, Human Monk 1/2. It's also a blue creature. It's prowess, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So it's letting you filter through your deck, get to your combo pieces, maybe get more non-creature spells to then up Jeskai Elder's power. So pretty good card. Last reprint in Khans of Tarkir. Next we have Reign of Revelation. This was only printed in Modern Horizons, so this was a card that was printed in a set that went straight to Modern. And now it's being printed into Standard. It's a 4-cost instant. It says draw 3 cards, then discard a card at instant speed. I think this is a pretty good card. If it wasn't instant speed, I would say this is pretty lame. But the fact that, you get to draw 3 cards, it's not bad. Next, we have Tidal Whale. This is a 7-cost creature whale. Creatures your opponent control get -1/-0, and pay 2. Discard Tidal Whale, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, the other into your graveyard. So it's kind of just like cycling, but not named cycling. It also is different, obviously. You get to look at the top 2 cards instead of just drawing a card. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be a pretty big game ender for limited environments. You're weakening all your opponent's creatures, you have a giant 7/7, and if you don't need it, you can cycle it. So yeah, I think this is going to end a lot of limited games. Next, we have Bad Deal with some weird art. It's a 6-cost sorcery, and it says you draw 2 cards, and each opponent discards 2 cards. Each player loses 2 life. So, yeah, pretty, old school. This seems like our EC on an old school card. But, yeah, in terms of the card itself, it's too expensive. Won't see any play in Standard. That's all I have to say. Next, we have Maleficent Scythe. It is a 2-cost artifact equipment, and it says it enters the battlefield with a soul counter on it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each soul counter on it, and whenever equipped creature dies, put a soul counter on it. So essentially, it's going to start as a 1, it's 1/1, it's going to boost it for 1, and then, as you have to move it to other creatures because your creatures are constantly dying, eventually you're going to have this equipment that basically just boosts it for 8. Very interesting, probably used in some gimmicky deck somewhere. Probably not going to see any impact in the Standard. Next, we have Necromancia. It's a 3-cost black sorcery, and it says choose a card name other than a basic land card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles their library, then creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token for each card exiled from their hand this way. So the idea is, hey, my opponent is playing a Winota deck, pay 3, name Winota, Joiner of Forces, and you get to just exile them from everywhere except for the battlefield. And then if you manage to get something in their hand so that you're not just ripping a bunch of cards from their hand, they get 2/2 black zombies. This is devastating against a deck that only really has 1 win con. I think it's something we need more of in Standard. Next, we have Fungal Rebirth. It's a 3-cost instant. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Not bad for 3. If a creature died this turn, create 2 1/1 Sapperling creature tokens. So, you play someone board wipes on their turn. You can then pay 3, return one of the things they killed back to your hand, and then create 2 1/1 green Sapperling tokens. Even if they didn't board wipe, if they just killed one of your things, bring it back 2 Sapperlings. Pretty good card. Next, we have Cryptic Masterpiece. This is a 2-cost artifact. Tap, put a page counter on Cryptic Masterpiece, scry 1. Pay 2, tap, put a page counter on Cryptic Masterpiece, draw a card. And then whenever Cryptic Masterpiece has 4 or more page counters on it, exile it. When you do, gain 4 life. So that is not a may, you have to. So essentially this thing can pay, you put it in for 2, it does absolutely nothing. Then you can start to pay 2 and tap it to draw a card, which honestly is not that bad for colors that really can't draw cards. I mean, throw this in a white deck, and this is just an interesting way to draw cards, but unfortunately, after 4 times of using it, it goes away and you gain 4 life. It's almost like they thought this was a white card. But there are some interesting ways you can get rid of it. For instance, there are some cards from War of the Spark that like to get rid of counters, so there are some interesting things you can do with this. I'm sure there's some janky deck that lets you just draw a bunch of cards, but just generally, pretty good card draw. You're probably never going to tap it to scry 1 unless you, need to get to a certain card, so, yeah. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for this video. There weren't that many spoilers today, but we got some interesting ones. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.